Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have a couple of stories for you from the ProRevenge subreddit. But the big news is coming tomorrow and I'm so excited. I can't wait to let you guys know what I've been working on for the past couple of months. Woohoo! I can now say with 100% confidence that there might be some cookies in your near future. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Alright, on to the stories, let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Called in the 90s, Revenge on a client who tried to throw me under the bus. I was pushing 40 and I'd learned a lot of lessons in more than 10 years of legal practice. But one of the most important lessons I learned was from an older lawyer that I worked for as a summer student after the second year of law school. A lawyer has 3 duties, he told me. First, to himself. Second, to the court. And last, the client. Always make sure you come first, and the client comes last. The reason? Because clients will F you, he said. They'll throw you under the bus without thinking twice. I should have stayed with this lawyer, but being young and an idiot, I had to go to work downtown. And I'm still downtown now. But fortunately for me, I remembered this lesson. And it came in handy many years later when a client really did try to throw me under the bus. My client was this mid-sized company that did this and that and owned things here and there. Not big enough to be listed, but it did have a pretty sizable real estate portfolio. And one day, a building they owned burned to the ground. The company wanted to collect on the insurance, so they told Frank, a veteran salaryman, to deal with it. Frank was close to 60 and thought he knew what he was doing. He didn't need me to help him with the insurance claim, he told me. He had everything under control. Besides, lawyers are expensive. Some guys really get off on not paying legal fees, and Frank was one of those guys who gloated over every penny that he managed not to pay the lawyers. I dealt with Frank a lot, and he was always nickel and diming me. The insurer is going to F you, I told Frank. It was only by luck that I even knew about the fire and the loss, because Frank had not asked for my help. He just let it slip one day, and since then, I'd kept on top of him, trying to get him to smarten up. I'd had to fight to get him to send me the proof of loss form to make sure he hadn't messed that up. Frank effed up a lot, and I wondered sometimes how he had a job. But the proof of loss was okay, at least, so that was one less thing to worry about. You don't know that, he said. I could tell he just wanted to get me off the phone. I'm paid to know when insurers are trying to screw my clients, I said. And the insurer is going to screw you. They've been stringing you along for ages with requests and questions and paperwork, but they aren't going to pay you. Not unless you sue them. But Frank said he knew what he was doing, that it was all under control. And besides, he got along with the adjuster so great. The limitation period expires in 2 weeks, I said, and once that 2 weeks pass, it will be too late to sue. The moment that limitation period expires, they will stop taking your calls. You'll get a final email saying, sorry, you're out of time, and that will be that. Don't leave this till the last minute. Let me sue right now, and you'll have the money in no time. Frank was like, sure, fine, whatever, don't bother me, I got this, blah blah blah. And he got off the phone as soon as he could. I sent him the usual email with clear warnings and recommendations, which he ignored. I sent the email again, and then again as the limitation period approached, and again a couple of days before the deadline. I'm gonna be at trial, and you won't be able to reach me, my final email said. But you have to sue. You have other firms on your list, so pick one and sue. He didn't bother to reply, and I went off to do my trial. The trial lasted a couple of weeks and no email from Frank. Then a month passed, and another month, still no email. I figured he must have sorted things out. Maybe Frank was right after all, I said to myself, and then my phone rang. It was Frank. Remember that fire insurance thing we spoke about? We'd only spoken about it like a dozen times. I figured he was calling up to gloat. So I cut to the chase. So they paid out. That's great, Frank. You were right. He asked me what I was talking about and could he see a copy of the claim? What claim? I said. The claim against the insurer. You know, that claim. Does that mean the insurer didn't pay? I said. He hung up on me, and then a few minutes later, my computer dinged, and there was Frank's email talking about how we spoke, and he told me to sue, and he was worried when I hadn't sent him a copy of the claim. So he was following up to get a copy of the claim. I emailed him back. I take it that the insurer didn't pay you, just like I told you they wouldn't. And now that the limitation period is expired, they told you to jump in the lake, leaving you with a loss in the millions. Is that it? I'd made a mistake by not going over Frank's head when he wouldn't listen to me. But if I'd gone over Frank's head, I never would have received another file from him. So I didn't. But that was then, and this was now. So I CC'd Frank's boss and his boss's boss. Plus, I CC'd Bill, the client's in-house counsel. Bill acknowledged my email right away and called me later that day. Frank messed up, he said. We know that. He's an idiot. So what do we do? So his excuses didn't work? Nope. Bill explained that they'd summoned Frank to a boardroom, but his story didn't add up, given all the warnings I'd sent him. Besides, there would have been no reason for him to keep emailing the insurer if he told me to sue. Once the file goes to legal counsel, Frank's role was over. The company knew Frank was bullcrapping them, so that's it then, Bill said. We just lost a couple $1,000,000? It's okay, I said, explaining that when I realized that Frank was going to F up, I issued a claim against the insurer. Because I'd made Frank send me the proof of loss a while earlier, I had enough information that I could sue to preserve the cause of action. Not a great claim and short on details, but good enough. You sued without instructions, Bill said. Lawyers aren't supposed to sue without instructions, because if you do that, you're personally liable for whatever costs the other side incurs. It's a big deal to sue without instructions. Yep, I said. I sued without instructions. I pulled up a copy of the claim and emailed it to him as we spoke. It's a little rough, I said, but we can always amend. Thank God, Bill said. Can I leave it with you? Of course he could. The insurer was a sitting duck, and I knew I'd collect from them no problem. A few days later, I got a call from another guy who worked for the client, a guy I didn't normally deal with. They had a situation and needed my help. I usually deal with Frank, I said. What's up? What was up was that Frank got called into another meeting, and they handed him a one-page letter. And then he put his little office things in a box, and security walked him past his coworkers to the elevator and escorted him downstairs to the parking lot. Bye-bye, Frank. He was too old to get another job, or at least not a decent one. It was a life-changing event for Frank. But for me, he was just an anecdote. A cautionary tale that I tell young lawyers sometimes over beers. Maybe too often, because I'm getting on in years, and I have my favorite stories. I wasn't trying to get revenge on Frank, not at all, and I would have felt a bit sorry for him if he hadn't been trying to throw me under the bus. But the guy who replaced him was great, and never nickel and dimed me, so it was all good. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Lou1845. It says, never lie to your lawyer. Never stiff your lawyer. Always listen to his or her advice. That's what you pay them for. If you do not trust their advice, get a lawyer you trust. Another commenter down below called Midoji says, it wasn't even his own money, but the company who would be paying the lawyer. And he was that cheap? Weird hill to die on. Alright, so I'm not a lawyer, I'm not trained in that at all, but I did watch Suits, so I'm kind of an expert, right? So what happens in this case when the insurer finds out that the lawyer submitted the claim without the consent of the client? Isn't there something ethics related in there? I have no idea, but I'm sure somebody out there knows. Comment down below and let me know. This story comes to us from Nebraska Stig. Some like it hot. Reading a recent Stolen Food ProRevenge reminded me, I too have a similar life experience to share. True story. I had taken an R&D internship for a food company over the summer in Keokuk, the armpit of Iowa for those unfamiliar. For housing accommodations, the company had set me up in the local college dorm that was previously a retirement home, so it basically had individual rooms and bathrooms, but one large commercial kitchen. It was summer, and the school didn't have a summer program, but allowed 2 fall students to move in at the beginning of the summer. One was rarely there, but the other was constantly in the building, and oftentimes had multiple friends over. Given the kitchen setup, we all stored our food there, and it's a pretty no-brainer you shouldn't take food from others, but immediately I had various food items going missing or being consumed regularly. Sodas, empty boxes of cereal put back on the shelf, etc. I initially posted a sign on the fridge to not eat others' food, and also confronted both about having food go missing after the sign was up. But it didn't stop whomever from stealing my food, particularly when I'd head out of town for weekends. After complaining about the situation to my manager during my job, they helped formulate the perfect ProRevenge. Given I was doing R&D work on food products, I was responsible for getting various ingredient samples to use for new recipes. My manager suggested I get some capsaicin extracts for my research, even though we weren't doing anything in that realm for flavor profiles. Well, I found a company that had various Scoville unit extracts and asked for a variety to see what worked best for our applications. Well, did they deliver with some small 2-ounce bottles of 50,000, 100,000, and 250,000 Scoville extracts. I ended up putting the 250,000 in a travel-size spray bottle, mixed with some water to help as a carrier, and wearing gloves and a mask borrowed from work, doctored the common food items being stolen with a liberal spraying of my mixture, mainly cereal, chips, crackers, jug of milk, and the lip and top of a few soda cans. For the snacks, I actually put some into a separate bag and left them open to dry before mixing back into the original packaging. I did this in a different dorm room in my wing, as I know well enough how potent this can be in enclosed spaces. I did this right before another trip out of town, and when I returned, I found some of the chips and cereal and milk was missing, plus 2 of the 3 cans of soda I had doctored. I never got to see the result, and no one ever said anything, but none of my food went missing for the remaining month of my stay. I hope the experience was enlightening for them, and they still remember the time they played with fire. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Yellow Cottage 61. It says, roommates can be weird. One time, I shared a house with 2 people, and each month we'd go through our phone bill. This was before mobiles, and mark which long distance calls were ours, and then we'd each pay our proper share. Because the phone was in my name, they both gave checks or cash to me. It worked well for many months, until one month it was day before bill was due, and one roommate still hadn't paid their share, which was not wholly unusual, not every month but sometimes. Note that they were often away for more than a day as they stayed at a partner's place for the night. Anyhow, I put a note on the bill that said, "Hi name, just a reminder, the phone bill needs to be paid tomorrow, so please leave a check if you're not going to be around, thanks." About 2 hours later, I'm at work and see them walk into the office and look around, locate me, and then walk over to my desk, where they proceed to tear the phone bill and note into little pieces, drop it all on my desk, and practically yell, "You do not tell me what to do." Then they walked out. My boss came over and asked what's that all about. I said, I haven't a clue. I just left them a note saying the phone bill is due. That evening, I'm sitting watching TV and they came home. They went into the kitchen, made a pot of coffee. They drink 4 or 5 strong pots of coffee every day, which didn't help the situation. And then they came into the TV room and sort of mumbled kind of an apology and said they might have come on a bit strong this morning. Yeah, okay. OP responded to this comment, said, "Wowza, that's a bit of an unstable roommate you had. I wouldn't call my situation a roommate status, given there were 2.5 wings of rooms and probably held 70-ish rooms, plus living spaces, dining hall, foyer, etc., similar to a single-floor hotel. 3 of us in this place sometimes felt like a low-budget Shining, like The Dulling or something." I believe we covered the story that OP was referencing at the beginning in a previous video. It's the one where the person put X-Lax or something similar into the food in their workplace because their lunches were being stolen. So in both of these cases, the one with the X-Lax and this one with the hot stuff, I say it's completely justified. I'm not a skinny man by any means, and if you mess with my food, I am totally gonna mess with you. And now, after these two stories, I got some great ideas on how to do that. Now, I just need to get somebody to steal my food so I can try this out.